back. It's your man Wise, and today we have to discuss whether or not Joe Biden will be this year's presidential nominee for the Democratic Party. We know the foolery that these people will try to pull. The way that Joe Biden is moving around, and I know he was out up in Philly and he's shuffling around here, and they got him moving around, walking around, looking like Weekend at Bernie's. But can you guys fathom another 4-year stint from Joe Biden based on everything that we've seen up to this point? Can you even fathom something along those lines? Lord forbid he wins and something happens to him and we have to deal with Kamala Harris. Is that who we want as president? Is that what we want? Do your job. On the conservative side, on the Republican side, if you're independent, you got to vote to get this dude out of office. If you're a Democrat, how can you possibly support Joe Biden? How can you possibly support this administration and the policies? How? Like, share, subscribe to the channel. Drop me a comment down below. I appreciate all the love and support. And without further ado, let's go.
Biden had hinted in 2019 that he would be a one-term president. His job was to get Donald Trump out and then hand the baton off to,
Who do you think it could be, if not Joe Biden?
Democrats going to pull Joe Biden out of the 2024 race in May.
Mr. Biden is not the Democratic nominee.
Biden should not run, and Harris would be worse for the country. So who's next in line?
Joe Biden and Dems committed elder abuse on Joe. Now they must force him to step aside. And there's a quote from within the article from the editorial board. Joe Biden knew, his aides knew. Heck, James Clyburn, the entire Democratic establishment knew, yet terrified that Bernie Sanders would win the nomination and then failed to take down their mortal enemy, Donald Trump. They propped up Biden like he was a Potemkin candidate, or more accurately, Weekend at Bernie's, to try to capture.
Yo, I said that 4 or 5 months ago. I said it. When he was up in New York, I was like, man, this guy looks like Weekend at Bernie's. I'm glad to see that everybody sees the same thing. They see what I see.
Sure, some of the Obama nostalgia. It's time for those same Democrats who lied to get Biden into the White House to tell them that he must step aside before the 25th Amendment is invoked.
Now look at this headline. I'll read it for you. 3 scenarios to replace Joe Biden on the ballot. Any chance of them happening? That's a good question, isn't it? Joe Concha wrote it and is with me now. All right, Joe, what are these 3 scenarios? And do you think any of them are likely to actually take place?
If the reason that Joe Biden is dropping out is because his poll numbers are terrible, he has no faith and confidence in the American people, I don't really see how putting Kamala Harris in that slot is going to remedy the situation. Someone who's also been dogged by incredible poll numbers. And if you really do believe that you're about to lose this election by putting forward a uniquely, historically weak candidate like Joe Biden, then yeah, I think it's worth having a conversation.
Something the special counsel said in his report is that one of the reasons you were not charged is because, in his description, you are a well-meaning elderly man with a poor memory.
I'm well-meaning, and I'm an elderly man, and I know what the hell I'm doing.
How bad is your memory, and can you continue as president?
My memory is so bad, I let you speak. That's
your memory has gotten worse, Mr.
No,
President?
My memory is not good. My memory is fine.
Yeah, I wouldn't go with fine as the best description. Yeah, maybe that's why Jill usually jumps up to get him off stage.
Joe Biden had hinted in 2019 that he would be a one-term president. His job was to get Donald Trump out and then hand the baton off to, Kamala Harris, who's currently polling at 28% approval. But Joe Biden has been very
Slightly
successful.
less popular than wildfires.
It's like gas station sushi at this point. You know, it's about that kind of popularity. So she's not an option at this point. But Jill Biden has been very successful in terms of keeping him out of the spotlight.
I don't blame Jill Biden for being defensive of her husband. Totally. I think any woman would do the same thing and make sure that he is protected. She obviously knows what condition she's in. What I do blame her for is the fact that they are continuing this charade.
Well, right. And she's not just a spouse, right? She's not just, and she's the first lady, and she knows very well what she's dealing with. What we don't know is how long she has been leading him along and defending him and all that. And I get it. That's what spouses do. If someone left my husband out to dry, I would end them. And he knows that, and so do the people around him. But I'm not the first lady. And you can think about that in a warm way of like, oh, she's protecting her husband, until you consider in this book, quote, her dislike of Trump was a driving reason behind her support for him to run and for re-election. So she knows exactly who, not only who she's dealing with, who her staff is dealing with, but who the United States has in the White House. And she continues to let him do this, and then it sounds like blame others when he isn't up to the task.
Yeah, and she also has no love for the vice president.
She's complicit. She's part of the problem. I think she enjoys being first lady as much as Joe Biden enjoys being president, or at least having the title anyway. So she's complicit in the elder abuse, because any sane woman, any woman that actually cared for their spouse, they would not do this to them. They would tell him, all right, babe, we got to stop this. Sit down somewhere. Let's get out of this. But it's obvious she wants the limelight. She enjoys being the first lady, and it's obvious she loves the position and the power that it holds.
Does happen to Biden, there will be a bitter feud to be his replacement. She's not just like going away quietly.
I don't know why people say that. What about Kamala Harris has ever evinced to you like a shark-like appetite for political power? Like what about how she has been operating?
Biden should not run, and Harris would be worse for the country. So who's next in line? Best chances of being elected this fall. Trump is a 5-6 shot. It's better than even. Biden 15-8, a little better than 2-1. Next in line, Michelle Obama 11-1.
Joe Biden will not be the nominee.
Joe Biden will not be the Democratic Party nominee.
Whoa. You're on record.
On record. People feel is not up to the job anymore, certainly not for the next 4 years. They cannot have him running in November, but they know they cannot go with this guy in this kind of condition.
Joe Biden will not be the nominee. I said this last year. People dismissed it as some type of conspiracy theory. Today, I think it became that much more obvious. Play this out. Biden's own DOJ and special counsel is effectively releasing a report that undermines the case for him to actually be a candidate for the U.S. presidency, right as Biden's poll numbers are cratering. But I do think what they're planning for is to sideline Biden as the nominee, trot in a different puppet instead. That's the most significant takeaway from tonight. But I think the reality is this. The managerial class in the Democratic Party, and I believe in the deep state, has decided that they have lost their use for Joe Biden as a puppet. I think they laid a trap for him. They invited him effectively to prove to the American people that he doesn't have the mental acuity to do it. He fell into their trap, and now they're laying the groundwork for in the coming 3 months to sideline him and actually put up who the real nominee is going to be. So I said this at the end of one of the Republican presidential debates, and I'll say it again. Just be honest with the American people. Tell us who the actual nominee is going to be so that we don't play these games and we can actually have an honest, open debate about who should be the next president of the United States. Because we know that Joe Biden is not going to be one of those candidates. And I think tonight made that much more clear.
Now look at this headline. I'll read it for you. 3 scenarios to replace Joe Biden on the ballot. Any chance of them happening? That's a good question, isn't it? Joe Concha wrote it and is with me now. All right, Joe, what are these 3 scenarios? And do you think any of them are likely to actually take place?
Well, Stu, I'll run them down and I'll give you my final answer on the second question. Scenario number 1 is the most common scenario among the political class, chattering class. At the Democratic National Convention in July, Joe Biden suddenly announces that he can't go forward with his reelection campaign. The reason is almost irrelevant. Needless to say, delegates on the convention floor magically are all in sync in nominating former First Lady Michelle Obama to be the nominee. Of course, this is the party that continues to insist to this day that they can only save democracy from Donald Trump, but they will have no problem in taking away the voters' rights in terms of deciding who the primary nominee is out of that particular process. And the media, of course, because a Michelle Obama candidacy is far, far more interesting than covering old Joe Biden, they will embrace this because the love affair with the Obamas never truly ended.
Everybody is talking about Joe Biden's too old to run. It's that conversation right there. Joe Biden's too old. And then the question turns to, well, who could do the job better than him? Everybody looks around at each other. And then the next question is, who could beat Trump? Everybody looks at their shoes, and nobody.
It's true.
And that's the thing. It's so interesting. David Ignatius wrote that column yesterday, and so everybody, stop. Everybody's like, oh, this is horrible. It's horrible. It's what they were saying, but it's almost like that article, I personally think, did Joe Biden a favor. And I think that because it finally got it out there. Okay, this is what everybody's talking about. Okay, you want to talk about it? Let's talk about it. Who you got? Who do you have to replace him? And there was a deafening silence yesterday.
That's the issue in the Democratic Party. They have no one to replace Joe Biden that's viable. Michelle Obama has already come out and said, absolutely not. She's not running. She has zero interest or the zeal to run for office. She's already said no. Gavin Newsom, he can't win. California is in such disarray right now. It's the worst state in the union. It used to be one of the best, and it used to be the wealthiest. It's now this state of socialism, and we see what socialism in America looks like. If you want to see what socialism in America looks like, go check out California. It's a mess out there. So Gavin Newsom doesn't have a chance. He can't win a debate. Trump would kill him in a debate. RFK would kill him in a debate. Cornel West would kill him in a debate. He has nothing to stand on. Now, the Democrats, they keep saying that Trump would be a threat to democracy. As the weeks and months progress, and as we get through the primaries, they just had the primary out in PA. The primary here in Maryland is happening in the next couple of weeks. There's been a plethora of primaries that's already happened earlier this year. If they were going to make the change, they should have done it already. So who is the party that's really the threat to democracy? Is it the Republicans or is it the Democrats? They've done it a few times where they just chose a person. It wasn't the people. It wasn't Democrats who voted in the primary. It was the elites, the establishment within the party. They made the decision. From what we know, they've done it at least twice. They did it the last time around with Biden, and they did it the time before that with Hillary Clinton. I would assume that if it's already happened twice, it's probably happened a few other times prior to that. But yet they say that conservatives, they say that Trump will be a threat to democracy. They're the true threat. But it's a lot of gaslighting that comes from the Democrat Party. Based on what I've seen, I just can't see 4 more years from Biden. I didn't vote for him the first time. I have zero interest in voting for him this time. I feel worse about him this time than I did 3.5, 4 years ago. Joe Biden will not be the nominee. You know it. I know it. The American people know it. The world knows it. The media is now telling you what we all know. Let me know what you guys think. Drop me a comment down below. Like, share, subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Keep God first in your life. Stay prayed up. It's crazy out here in these streets. And I'm going to catch up with you all next time. Peace.